For many centuries, historical scholarship maintained the belief that the Roman and Chinese empires existed as two entirely separate worlds. They were divided by vast distances, measured in thousands of kilometers, disparate cultural traditions, and seemingly insurmountable linguistic barriers. These two powerful states, reaching the zenith of their development on opposite ends of the known map, appeared destined to exist in parallel realities, never intersecting with one another. However, a deeper dive into archival documents and historical sources reveals isolated, fragmented, and often forgotten evidence suggesting the possibility of connections between these two civilizations. Roman coins discovered in Chinese soil, ancient written sources containing surprisingly accurate descriptions of distant empires, and a subtle, almost imperceptible thread weaving through space and time, the Great Silk Road. The following narrative transcends the usual accounts of trade relations between civilizations. It is a story of human curiosity, of espionage and intrigue, of quiet admiration for the achievements of a distant culture, and of unexpected links that force us to reevaluate established perceptions of ancient world history. Were the Roman and Chinese empires truly acquainted with each other? Or did they resemble two travelers wandering in the dark of night, whose paths briefly intersected but never allowed them to see one another? The reader will find answers to these questions in the forthcoming account, which will not only surprise, but also prompt reflection on how many more secrets human history holds, awaiting their time to be unveiled. In the distant past, when the world seemed vast and full of mysteries, the Roman Empire held sway over Europe and North Africa. Its power manifested in the construction of roads, the subjugation of peoples, and the erection of magnificent cities, many of which still bear witness to their former grandeur. Simultaneously, on the other side of the Eurasian continent, the Han dynasty ruled with no less brilliance, demonstrating a high level of administrative governance, technological achievements, and philosophical thought, which secured its status as the dominant power in the Far East. These two great empires were separated not only by immense distance, but also by a multitude of natural and human barriers that seemed insurmountable. Between them stretched mountain ranges such as the Hindu Kush, relentless deserts like the Taklamakan, and a chain of warlike peoples, from Parthia to the Xiongnu, each jealously guarding their role as intermediaries between the two civilizations. Notably, both empires sought expansion, moving in remarkably similar directions. The Roman Empire advanced into Asia Minor and the Middle East, while China extended its dominion westward, exploring the vastness of Central Asia. Like two rivers originating in different mountains, but flowing towards the same ocean, their paths began to converge. Despite the absence of shared maps, permanent embassies, or official agreements between Rome and China, only vague rumors reached them about the existence of a mighty empire somewhere beyond the horizon. In those times, merchants spread tales of magnificent cities, disciplined armies, and unprecedented luxuries that no known civilization could create. Each empire began to perceive the contours of the other. As international trade developed by land and by sea, the question arose in different parts of the world: who were these people living so far away? And how profoundly might they influence our world if we were ever to meet? For the Romans, China was not a nation with a specific name, but was a distant, exotic, and almost mythical place. They called it Serica, a name derived from their word for silk, the enigmatic fabric delivered from the furthest eastern reaches of the known world. The earliest mentions of this land can be found in the works of poets and writers such as Virgil, Horace, and Pliny the Elder. They describe a people living beyond boundless deserts and towering mountains, in lands so remote they seemed unattainable even for the most powerful empire of the West. Pliny, in his Natural History, expressed both admiration and concern regarding the extravagance of Roman society. He anxiously noted how vast quantities of gold flowed out of the empire's treasury annually to acquire exotic goods from the East, including silk, a fine, almost transparent fabric that became a symbol of luxury and decadence. Silk, as a fabric, evoked mixed feelings within the Roman Empire. Pliny the Elder, the renowned Roman scholar, viewed this attire, which was more revealing than concealing, not only as a challenge to traditional Roman moral values, but also as a sign of deep reliance on a mysterious supplier. The Romans remained ignorant of the true origin of this wonder. Various hypotheses were put forward. Some believed silk to be a plant product harvested from exotic trees, while others surmised it was ingeniously woven by some insects, though the mechanism of this process remained unfathomable. The only undeniable fact was that silk reached Rome through intermediaries, Persians, Parthians, Arabs, or Indians, but its genuine origin remained a closely guarded secret. For centuries, Roman geographers contented themselves with conjectures and assumptions. In their writings, they described distant lands abounding in mountains of precious jade and rivers where milk flowed instead of water. Individual travelers claimed to have reached a land of sages where justice reigned and laws were immutable. However, no one could say with certainty whether they spoke of China, India, or some mythical country. Even in subsequent centuries, as the Roman Empire transformed into the Byzantine, knowledge of the East remained fragmented and incomplete. Some Byzantine historians, such as Cosmas Indicopoulos, who lived in the 6th century, began to attempt more precise descriptions of trade routes, portraying the distant eastern land as a real place inhabited by virtuous people, where clothes and precious fabrics were exchanged as valuable gifts. Nevertheless, the image of China continued to be more a product of fantasy than a reflection of reality. The Roman Empire, gripped by an insatiable thirst for knowledge, sought to penetrate the mysteries of the surrounding world. On its eastern frontiers, from scorching Syria to fertile Egypt, Roman traders and governors recognized that beyond the sand dunes and mountain ranges lay an inexhaustible trove of riches and wonders. However, to seize these treasures, Rome had to break down the unseen barriers separating it from the enigmatic East. While Rome dreamed of the mysteries of eastern lands, in the distant chambers of the Han dynasty, rumors began to emerge about the existence of a powerful Western empire. Unlike the Romans, Chinese chroniclers were distinguished by their meticulousness and thoroughness. They recorded all information about unknown lands that their envoys and merchants gathered with painstaking accuracy. This is how the concept of Dachi originated. It was by this name that the ancient Chinese referred to the Roman Empire, envisioning it as a distant mirror image of their own civilization. They saw in it an empire equally powerful, just, and enlightened, yet situated on the opposite edge of the known universe. The Chinese did not view it as a threat, but rather as a parallel civilization. Ancient manuscripts, such as the Ho Han Shu, describe Daqin as a land inhabited by tall and light-skinned people. In the east of the Celestial Empire, tales emerged of the mysterious land of Daqin, whose inhabitants dwelled far to the west. Rumors circulated of vast cities, where strict laws prevailed and luxury was astounding. Legends spoke of magnificent stone palaces, the boundless Mediterranean Sea, and a curious floating bridge, likely the Euphrates, which served as the eastern frontier of Roman territories. Chinese chronicles carefully preserved descriptions of brilliant Alexandria with its straight streets, bustling port, and famous lighthouse, a marvel that captivated the entire ancient world. Though this information reached them secondhand, Chinese chroniclers painstakingly gathered every detail, like pieces of a complex puzzle, striving to grasp the essence of a civilization that seemed to share their grandeur and sophistication, but lay beyond their geographical knowledge. Even during the Tang dynasty, historical books recounted how Arab armies besieged the impregnable Byzantine capital, forcing the emperor to pay humiliating tribute. Ancient texts, astonishingly described Constantinople, admiring its granite walls, ingenious water clocks, and advanced medical practices, such as trepanation of the skull. In the eyes of Chinese sages, Byzantine medicine appeared both advanced and extravagant. It is remarkable to realize how two such distant civilizations, never having met face to face, created such vivid and detailed images of each other in their imaginations. And although the information was often fragmented or shrouded in conjecture, one truth emerged through the mists of time: Rome and China recognized each other as equals. Not as adversaries on the battlefield, nor as conquerors, but as mirror images of great empires, separated by immense spaces, but bound by invisible threads of history. Despite the lack of official diplomatic agreements or regular exchange of embassies between the Roman Empire and China, a strong and enduring connection, fueled by trade, emerged between these two civilizations. This connection was inextricably linked to silk. This fabric was a vital component of a trade network that traversed vast deserts, mountain ranges, flourishing oases, and open seas. Silk was not merely a fabric. It was a symbol of high status, luxury, and power. In the Roman Empire, wearing silk denoted membership of society's elite. In China, the export of silk allowed the exquisite craftsmanship of Chinese artisans to be showcased beyond its borders. This mutual desire led to the creation of one of the most important trade routes in human history, the Silk Road. This complex labyrinth of land and sea routes connected the Far East with the Mediterranean, albeit rarely directly. Intermediaries played a crucial role between the two empires: Parthians, Sogdians, Persians, and Kushans. These peoples not only transported goods, but also controlled the flow of information, determining which details would reach each country and which would remain secret. The Roman Empire did not have the means to conduct direct trade with China on a regular basis. However, this did not prevent Roman markets from teeming with Eastern goods such as silk, porcelain, spices, and precious stones. Despite geographical barriers, Asian goods found their way into the Roman Empire, arousing admiration for their exoticism and craftsmanship. Simultaneously, Roman products made their way into Asia, testifying to the breadth of trade connections. Alexandrian glass, Baltic amber, imperial medallions, luxurious carpets embroidered with gold threads, and the enigmatic fabric known as sea silk, crafted from the byssus of the Mediterranean mussel. In the Chinese city of Yinchuan, archaeologists discovered a 4th-century Roman silver plate depicting the god Dionysus reclining on a wild beast. And in an ancient port located in modern-day Vietnam, coins minted during the reigns of emperors Marcus Aurelius and Antoninus Pius were found. Each such discovery is a silent affirmation that trade routes extended far further than one might imagine. It is remarkable that this extensive trade network was created not by imperial decree, but through the efforts of enterprising merchants, intrepid seafarers, and fearless adventurers, willing to risk everything to deliver precious cargo beyond the horizon. The Silk Road was not a single thoroughfare. It was rather a shared dream of different civilizations that, perhaps, never met but recognized their need for one another. For centuries, China meticulously guarded the secret of silk production, one of the most valuable technologies of antiquity. This was not only an economic matter, but also a matter of national importance. Silk was not merely a commodity. It was a symbol of power, a cultural hallmark, a diplomatic tool, and a source of immeasurable wealth, a secret that no one had managed to unravel. But one day, this secret was stolen. In the 6th century, during the reign of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, who sought to restore Rome's former glory and strengthen his empire's economic might, an intriguing story unfolded concerning the secret of silk. Constantinople, a center of trade, was forced to pay exorbitant sums for Chinese silk, which reached the city through intermediaries, Persian and Arab merchants, who kept the lion's share of the profits for themselves. Justinian realized that breaking this monopoly would be key to shifting the trade balance between East and West. It was at this moment that two mysterious figures emerged onto the historical stage, two Nestorian Christian monks who, under the guise of missionary work, infiltrated China. During their stay, they meticulously studied all stages of silk production, from the rearing of silkworms and the harvesting of cocoons to spinning, dyeing, and transforming the finest thread into exquisite fabric. However, upon returning home, they carried with them not only valuable knowledge and memories. Inside hollow bamboo staffs, the monks concealed precious cargo, silkworm eggs, and delicate mulberry shoots. They did not carry fabric samples, detailed maps, or scientific treatises. They carried the very essence of silk production's secret. Upon their arrival in Byzantium, the eggs hatched, the caterpillars grew, and for the first time in history, the West gained the ability to produce its own silk. This revolution in the silk industry had an immediate and transformative impact on the economy and culture of the Byzantine Empire. During the Byzantine Empire's heyday, cities such as Constantinople, Antioch, and Beirut became major textile production centers. This industry was strictly regulated by laws that dictated who was permitted to wear silk fabrics, which colors were allowed, and in what situations it was appropriate. Imperial purple, used for dyeing silk, became an exclusive symbol of power, accessible only to the emperor. Byzantine silk began a triumphant march across European markets, gradually displacing Persian fabrics and entering into direct competition with Chinese silk. However, this triumph also had a downside. The revelation of the silk production secret dealt a significant economic blow to China. Although the quality of Chinese silk remained exemplary, the Celestial Empire's monopoly came to an end. For the first time in centuries, the greatest technological secret of the East ceased to be its exclusive property. This was truly a silent revolution in history, without military campaigns, armed spies, or bloodshed. Just two individuals, two hollow staffs, and the fall of an invisible wall that had separated two worlds for centuries. For centuries, relations between Rome and China were primarily limited to trade connections. Nevertheless, archaeological finds and genetic studies allow us to glimpse more personal, human traces of these contacts. In 2010, during excavations of an ancient Roman tomb in northern Italy, a skeleton with an unusual characteristic was discovered. Analysis of mitochondrial DNA, inherited through the maternal line, indicated the individual's East Asian origin. In an ancient burial site in modern-day England, a skeleton was discovered belonging to an individual whose mother, analysis revealed, had Chinese roots. This discovery challenges established notions of migration and cultural connections in the Roman Empire era. More than 8,000 kilometers from China, in the very heart of Roman territories, lay an individual whose ancestors lived far beyond the Mediterranean. Who was he? How did his mother come to be in this land? Was she a descendant of merchants, migrants, or slaves? The precise answers to these questions remain a mystery, but their significance for understanding history is undeniable. Years later, in the London borough of Southwark, at the heart of ancient Roman Londinium, 3 more skeletons were found. Forensic examination revealed traits characteristic of Asian inhabitants, possibly from China or Central Asia. Despite the fact that forensic science cannot provide absolute proof, this find sparked lively debates among historians. Did representatives of Far Eastern civilizations truly reside within the Roman Empire? At the same time, researchers also investigated the inverse situation. In the remote village of Liqian, situated in China's Gansu province, some modern inhabitants possess unique physical characteristics that distinguish them from the majority of the country's population: light eyes, prominent noses, and tall stature. For many years, This served as the basis for a legend that they are descendants of Roman soldiers captured after their crushing defeat at the Battle of Carrhae in 53 BC. According to tradition, the Parthians sent these captives to guard the eastern frontiers of their empire. In the scientific community, a compelling hypothesis continues to resonate, put forward in 1941 by the American sinologist Homer Dubs, suggesting that a handful of Roman warriors might have founded a settlement deep within Chinese territory. This bold theory, which sparks fierce debate, emerged from the painstaking analysis of ancient texts and geopolitical considerations. Dubs drew upon ancient Chinese chronicles, which recounted the arrival of a detachment of foreign soldiers captured by the Parthians and sent east after the Romans' devastating defeat at the Battle of Carrhae in 53 BC. Despite genetic studies not providing a definitive answer, and archaeological excavations not yet yielding irrefutable evidence, the legend persists. With it, the idea gains traction that the interaction between the Roman Empire and China was not limited to trade, but had a profound human aspect. Perhaps we may never definitively know who first crossed the boundaries separating these civilizations. However, every Roman coin discovered in China, every shard of Egyptian glass buried deep within Central Asia, and every skeleton bearing a mixture of ancestry serves as a reminder that the course of history is shaped not only by diplomatic agreements and bloody battles. It also runs through the destinies of ordinary people whose lives, often remaining anonymous, connected different worlds long before cartographers charted them. Historical chronicles recount captives whose military tactics resembled interlacing fish scales, evoking associations with the famous Roman testudo, a defensive formation where shields created an impenetrable shell. Dubs' hypothesis that these warriors, likely serving in auxiliary forces on the eastern frontiers of the mighty Parthian Empire, could have reached the territory of modern-day Gansu province in China. There, in his opinion, they might have founded a small settlement that was destined to become known in the future as Liqian. The captivating notion of a lost Roman colony, nestled deep within China, has ignited the imagination of researchers, historians, local authorities, and enterprising tour operators alike. For many years, genetic studies were conducted to confirm this intriguing theory. In 2005, some genetic tests revealed Eurasian genetic markers in several residents of Liqian, which was widely interpreted as potential evidence of Roman ancestry. However, subsequent and more extensive analyses conducted in 2007 indicated that the genetic profile of most modern Liqian residents shared common characteristics with northern Chinese ethnic groups, showing no clear connection to European populations. Furthermore, archaeological excavations in Liqian have yielded no artifacts whatsoever that would suggest a Roman presence. No coins, pottery, weapons, or architectural structures in the Latin style have been found. Consequently, this hypothesis, regrettably, appears to be based more on a desire for sensationalism than on compelling evidence, thus casting doubt on its scientific validity. Despite the tireless efforts of historians and archaeologists, many mysteries of the past remain unsolved, buried beneath the weight of time and the sands of oblivion. Yet, some stories endure, not due to their factual accuracy, but because of the profound symbolism they embody. Such is, for instance, the legend of Roman legionaries defeated and exiled to a foreign land, who, after traversing thousands of kilometers, established a settlement in the heart of China. This captivating hypothesis vividly illustrates how historical paths can sometimes unfold in whimsical and unpredictable ways, deviating from well-trodden routes and official chronicles. It may well be that researchers will never definitively establish whether Liqian was, in fact, a Roman colony. However, the very fact that such a question arose at all is highly significant. It presents us with a picture of the ancient world as a complex, interconnected, and surprising system, extending far beyond conventional perceptions. This example compels us to reevaluate established views on the interaction between civilizations and cultures in the distant past. At first glance, it might seem that contact between the Roman Empire and China was sporadic and coincidental. Yet, a closer examination of the traces left by centuries of vibrant trade, technological exchange, and mutual interest reveals a vastly different picture. Although these two great powers never engaged in open military conflicts or forged formal alliances, their indirect influence on one another left an indelible mark on history, enduring for millennia. This demonstrates that even without direct interaction, civilizations are capable of profoundly and lastingly impacting each other's development. Silk, that exquisite material, was more than just a commodity. It became the quintessence of luxury, a symbol of power, and an object of aesthetic veneration, fundamentally transforming the face of fashion across an entire civilization. In ancient Rome, silk tunics served not merely as clothing but as distinct social markers, unequivocally indicating high status, immense wealth, and membership in an exclusive circle. Over time, this passion for silk traversed oceans and centuries, triumphantly spreading from Europe to its American colonies. In subsequent eras, every lady at the Spanish or French court, adorned in silk, unwittingly carried echoes of an ancient connection to the mysterious East. However, trade relations were not limited to silk alone. Roman merchants actively exported their glass, amber products, and advanced urban technologies. While the Chinese did not directly adopt these, the goods undoubtedly served as a source of inspiration for creating new forms of luxury, shaping new perceptions of value, and potentially opening up new technological horizons. This cultural exchange was subtle yet relentless. Yet, perhaps the most valuable legacy of this era was the cultural aspect. Both empires gained an opportunity to form an impression of each other, to recognize one another as developed civilizations worthy of respect. This mutual perception, albeit veiled by a haze of myths, commercial interests, and vast distances, fostered an awareness of other civilized peoples, as great and complex as their own. And in an age when everything foreign was often branded as barbaric, this represented a genuine breakthrough in consciousness. The two greatest empires of antiquity, Rome and China, though not sharing borders, were united by an invisible drive to establish connections that stretched beyond reach. Unbeknownst to themselves, they became the architects of one of humanity's first global networks. Along this path, it became clear that despite the thousands of kilometers separating them, the Roman and Chinese empires did not exist in complete isolation from one another. While formal treaties and direct diplomatic missions, in the modern sense, were absent between them, this by no means implied they lacked knowledge of each other. The interaction between them was far more complex and fascinating. Rome craved silk, yet had no clear understanding of its origins. China, in turn, accepted Roman goods without knowing precisely who had produced them. A vast network of intermediaries existed between the two empires, filtering goods, stories, and even rumors. Nevertheless, despite all obstacles, each empire was aware of the other's existence. Roman poets and geographers wrote of a distant land where a mysterious fiber, woven as if from light, was born. Chinese chroniclers, for their part, described Daqin, a mighty kingdom at the other end of the world, renowned for its strong laws, magnificent cities, and advanced culture. And though these two empires were never destined to clash on the battlefield or at the negotiating table, they left an indelible mark on each other, not only through trade but also through the power of imagination. The two great empires of antiquity, Rome and China, existed as if in parallel worlds, separated by immense distances and cultural differences. Each, having reached unprecedented heights in its development, represented a unique phenomenon. Despite the absence of direct interaction, they perceived each other as reflections of their own grandeur, as civilizations worthy of admiration and study. Perhaps it was this very awareness, bolstered by mutual respect and curiosity, that formed the foundation of their indirect connection. In the modern world, where globalization and cultural exchange have become commonplace, it is easy to forget that the origins of these processes lie in the distant past. More than 2 millennia ago, long before the advent of accurate geographical maps, East and West were already linked by invisible threads of trade and cultural exchange. Silk, glass, amber, coins, and words forged routes across continents, uniting peoples and civilizations. Every time we touch a soft fabric or admire an elegant glass object, it is worth remembering that these items, now so familiar, were once symbols of luxury and connections between worlds. Behind each of them lies a whole history of human endeavor, distances overcome, risks justified, and shared dreams. A pertinent question arises: would Rome and China have truly come to know each other had there not been so many barriers in their path? Or perhaps it was precisely the mystery surrounding their interactions and the unattainability of direct contact that made this connection so enduring and long-lasting? At the crossroads and points of convergence of civilizations, we realize that history is written not only in books but also in our perception of the world around us. This is why it is so important to look at familiar things with fresh eyes, discovering the richness of cultural heritage and the diversity of human experience.